All right, here we are in the ebook provided to us by McGraw-Hill, the parent company. Connect Math is our software. Intermediate Algebra, 3rd edition is the title of the book by Julie Miller and her co-authors. This segment of the video I'm making because a lot of students either didn't have a textbook when they were in high school. You might be watching this video when you're in high school right now, but this video is intended to be used by students who have access to an electronic textbook, and I want to show you what some of the resources are that are available in here to help you study for your next chapter test or final exam. So let's have a look. I've recommended to a number of my current students, and I'm making this video in April of 2018, I've recommended to a lot of my students that they go into the ebook because it's such a nicely organized accumulation and cross-section of the material that it will be beneficial to help you sort of organize your thoughts and topics as you prepare for your next test. So we're in Chapter 6. If I were doing this myself, I would have a blank sheet of paper, lined paper, white paper, whatever you want. If it's loose leaf, I would 3-hole punch it and prepare to accumulate these nicely labeled and organized in a 3-ring binder. Otherwise, a small, fairly thin, dedicated spiral notebook. I would recommend wide ruled instead of college ruled. You want to have space to write clearly and not have to use a magnifying glass to read your writing later. Use a mechanical pencil so it stays sharp all the time. Don't get a cheap one, get a nice one. Drop $5 on a mechanical pencil if you can, so that your writing stays clear and legible all the way through. All right, enough of the little stuff. Chapter 6, at the top of my page, if I'm taking these notes by hand, or if I'm transcribing some of this stuff into a Word document, or if I'm using a snippet tool and I'm copy and pasting some images into a Word document or something like that. At the top of that first document, I'm going to put the title of my chapter and the title of my section, addition and subtraction of rational expressions. Within this section, here's my first subsection. Guess how many subsections there are in this section of the chapter? If I were a betting man, I would bet on 4. All right, so in addition to the title of the chapter, the title of the section, then I would put the title of the subsection, and then, depending on how valuable these things are to you, you may want to transcribe or copy and paste this kind of general statement. This is a generalized depiction of how to add or subtract rational expressions that already have the same denominator. Now, what I'm doing in this video is not trying to give you a lesson on how to add and subtract. This is a lesson on how you can use the ebook to help you study for a chapter test or a final exam. Below that generalized example, we're seeing some specific examples. These are the ones that I really like because they actually have numbers in them. Below those examples, we can see the solution processes, not just the solutions, but the entire process for working out the problem. And there's some little annotations over here that tell you why it is, or how it is, or both, that we're going from one step to another. For example, let's look at the third example, subtracting these 2 rational expressions. We're being told to combine the terms in the numerator, using parentheses to group the terms that are following the subtraction sign. What does it look like when I do that? It looks like this. And then in order to go from this step down to here, what do? I look over to the side. I apply the distributive property. So the way that this particular book is laid out is interesting. In order to go from this step to the one below it, I come over here, access the instructions, and then I come back to see the result of having followed those instructions. So make sure that you get familiar with the layout of your book. Your authors are going to be meticulous about continuity of how the instructions were delivered in the book. So I would say almost without fail, the pattern will be they're going from this line, they're cutting across and down, You're following those instructions and then going immediately to the left to see the result of following those instructions. That should happen from question to question, section to section, chapter to chapter, within your own textbook. Now, what am I supposed to be doing with these problems? Well, in order to match them up with the patterns that we saw in this sort of generalized version up here, I would then take and copy one of these problems and the corresponding solution process onto whatever notebook paper I'm using or whatever Word document I'm building using the snippet tool. You could very easily just cut out example C down to here and copy and paste that and build yourself an example that has, or supply yourself with an example that actually has some numbers and some variables in it. What else could you do with these examples? Well, you could try doing them. That would be good practice, right? You don't want to actually look down here at the solution processes unless you're working through one of these problems and you get stumped. Then you want to look down and maybe not look at the entire solution process. Maybe you can keep the majority of the process off the screen and just glance down at the bottom of it to see what the next step is supposed to be, or even just try to focus your eye over here on the annotation to tell you what to do, and then see if you can apply the distributive property on your own in order to arrive at this sort of intermediate conclusion over here. All right, and once I'm done with those problems, where can I find more example problems, more practice problems? Because that's what my students want. They want to know where to go for practice problems. In this particular ebook, you can come over here to the right-hand side, and look, problem number 1 is so similar to part A. Problem 2 is similar to part B, and 3 to C. So you can follow the same annotations for those 3 problems. These little step-by-step notes over here, you should be able to follow those almost exactly in order to solve these 3 problems. Now the step-by-step solution process isn't shown for these 3, but if you hover your cursor over this link, the answers pop up. You don't actually have to click on the word answers. So be careful that you don't accidentally show yourself the answers to these just by sort of glancing below over this link here. What else is available? We've got a direct link to the mini lecture that's recorded by the publisher of this book. We can go directly to a video that's a mini lecture on the topic that we were just talking about and looking at examples of above, adding and subtracting rational expressions with the same denominator. And this author provides a PDF transcript of the lecture. And then when we go into subsection 2, the next little mini topic, in this one we've got a definition that's in here. You might think you know what an LCD is. Wouldn't hurt you to give this a quick read and remind yourself. You think you know how to find an LCD? Maybe you do. Maybe there's a more efficient way. Or maybe you don't actually know how to find it. And you can read this and refresh your memory as to the most efficient and correct way, or one of the most efficient and correct ways to find an LCD. Wouldn't hurt to review. Some of you watching this video have been out of the game for a semester or a year. Some returning students are coming back and seeing this stuff for the first time in 20 years. Aren't you glad this stuff is here and these little reminders are here? Because this note pertains to what's coming next. And then we see the pattern repeat. We've got example problems, worked out solution processes, annotations, additional problems, hover to see the answers. This is a really easy thing to snippet and put into your running Word document. Grab one of these initial problems. We're not even adding or subtracting here. We're just trying to find the LCD, right? So we're chopping the process up into smaller and smaller pieces. Here, more examples just of finding the LCD. We're not even adding anything together. There's the videos. There's the transcript. This is yet another skill that's necessary in order to actually do a problem where we're adding and subtracting expressions together that don't have the same denominator. And then finally we get down to a stage where we're going to take those 3 previous topics, those 3 previous subsections, and we're going to put them together in action in order to make this process finally happen. Multiplying by 1, creating that common denominator. And now that we've built two fractions that have a common denominator, now we can go through the process of doing the addition. So you're seeing how nicely this book is laid out in order to give you the little sort of retro tools and processes that you need in order to solve the slightly more complex problem of adding two fractions together, two rational expressions that don't have the same denominator. So we had to learn a couple of little skills necessary in order to get that common denominator. Now look at this one. This even has a step-by-step. This would be a great thing for you to print out, cut it out, tape it into your notebook, or again use that snippet tool and just sample the whole thing and drop it right into your Word document. Now I want to make one last little comment before I end this part of the video. Why is it that I'm taking notes on the ebook? Why is it that I'm using the snippet tool and copying and pasting these into a Word document? I should have said this at the beginning, but I'm glad I'm saying it now. We're building our own little notebook that only has the resources in it that we feel are necessary in order to help us prepare for our next test. This is the book that you're going to be able to flip back and look at as the exam date approaches. And this is a really great binder for you to have with you, or a document on your tablet that you can have with you on exam day. Get to your exam an hour and 15, hour and a half, whatever early, and get comfortable, bring a snack, bring water, and page through this thing in order to put these different types of problems and solution processes back in the front of your mind before you go in and knock it out of the park. Again, my name is Matthew Neubek. I'm a full-time instructor at Florida Gulf Coast University. I appreciate you spending some time with me marching through the ebook that I'm using this semester. Thanks again to McGraw-Hill and to Julie Miller and company for helping to build this wonderful resource. I hope you all make use of it. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.